Can one superpower make the world more stable? It might seem counterintuitive, but some IR theorists argue that global order depends on dominance rather than on balance. This brings us to hegemonic stability theory, which suggests that a single powerful state, a hegemon, can create and sustain international cooperation and peace, because in a system where cooperation is hard to achieve, a hegemon can set the rules, enforce norms, and even foot the bill to keep the system running. In international relations, a hegemon is normally understood as a state that possesses overwhelming military, economic, and political power, and just as importantly, the willingness to use that power to shape and stabilize the international system. Think of it as the country that has the power to write the rules and the interest in keeping the game going. Hegemonic Stability Theory, sometimes referred to as HST, argues that international cooperation is most likely when one state, the hegemon, is powerful enough to lead. The argument is essentially this. Cooperation under anarchy is hard, as states constantly worry about cheating, enforcement, and their own survival. Without a hegemon, concerns over relative gains may undermine cooperation. But a hegemon can reduce uncertainty and take on the costs of providing global public goods like secure trade routes, a stable currency, or enforcement of international agreements. As a result, it can create a system where even smaller states benefit from the order it provides. It's important to understand, though, that a hegemon isn't acting out of altruism. While it may be providing public goods, it does so because it benefits from the system it helps create and maintain. The international order reflects the hegemon's values and interests, whether that's free trade, secure investments, or political influence. By underwriting global security, the hegemon ensures that the world is safer and more predictable for itself, a world in which it can exercise leadership, project power, and reap economic reward. In other words, leadership and self-interest go hand in hand. Let's look at two historical cases that are often used to support HST. The first is Britain in the 19th century. After defeating Napoleon in the Napoleonic Wars, Britain emerged as the dominant naval and economic power. It used its global dominance to promote free trade, enforce the gold standard, and keep sea lanes open for global commerce throughout the historical epoch known as Pax Britannica. The second is the case of the United States in the decades after World War II. After World War II, the United States used its unmatched economic and military strength to shape the post-war order. It created institutions like the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the United Nations. It underwrote European recovery, and it maintained security alliances like NATO, laying the foundations for the liberal international order in the period sometimes referred to as Pax Americana. Both of these hegemonic periods coincided with relative global stability and economic growth, a point that HST scholars say supports the theory's core claims. But like any theory, hegemonic stability theory has its critics. One group of theorists raise concern about what happens when the hegemon declines. Does the whole system collapse? That's the fear, and some point to the 1970s oil shocks and U.S. retrenchment, as well as contemporary America First policies, as signs of what happens when a hegemonic leader falters. Other critics assert that a hegemon may not be required to maintain such systems. For example, Robert Cohane, a neoliberal institutionalist, argued that institutions can take over once established, even if the hegemon steps back. For example, the World Trade Organization and the European Union continue to operate and promote cooperation, even as U.S. leadership becomes more inconsistent. In this context, they assert, strong institutions and norms make order possible, even in a multipolar world. These questions are incredibly relevant today. Many observers argue that the U.S. hegemony is in decline, economically, diplomatically, even militarily. At the same time, China's rise is raising questions about whether we're heading towards a new hegemon or a contested, less stable international order. And as the U.S. retreats from multilateral leadership, the future of the liberal international order is uncertain. So, can institutions and coalitions maintain stability without a hegemon? Or does the world need a hegemon to hold things together? It's an interesting question, and one that we'll return to in another video, but that's it for now. Please leave any questions you have in the comments section below, and as always, thanks for watching.